Now, I took creative writing in college, as I said. We read this book. It wasn't my cup of tea at all. Nothing against it. It's I don't want to dog on the book because it has its merits from where it came from. But he's a pimp. He's literally a pimp, and it's broken English and a bunch of things like that that are wrong with it. This was privately printed. It was very, very popular. It's a paperback. It's something you can find because most people pass it up, think it's just trash. But in the literary world of today, this is something that's got its own big following, so this is something that you will find occasionally. It's literally the story of Iceberg Slim. It's obviously a fictitious name he's calling himself. He went by this name in real life, so this isn't something, some fantasy world. This is his literally take on it. So if you don't know who he is, type it in. I think there's even a movie, modern day movie about his life. Again, it's not my cup of tea in topics, but it has its merits in my book. I get it. There's a lot of things I don't like Lamore books. I'm not a big fan of the westerns at all, but I get it. It's well written. It's you can picture it from the wording he uses, from his adjectives and his descriptiveness, just like in here. Broken English or not, or street talk or whatever you'd like to call it. It honestly has its merits. If you haven't read part of it, at least look it up and read a couple paragraphs just to see what I'm talking about. It's interesting. It's a different take on life, which I personally don't mind at all. I love travel and aspects and different cultures. I accept everybody, so it doesn't bother me anything like that. Where you're from, what your religion, I don't care about any of that stuff. People are people and we move on from there. So that's just my take, but at least look into the book if you've never heard of this. It's a good book to look for, let me tell you. This is Anne. Now, this was published, if I'm not mistaken, through the U.S. military, and Dr. Seuss did this book. Reason why many people miss it, look at it. Does it say Dr. Seuss on the cover? No. Now, it's got similar style you would expect. It's a softbound. It's like a pamphlet on malaria. Now, I don't remember the whole, in fact, somebody stuck a label on the back. I don't think, that doesn't go with it. Yeah, this is the military version. I thought it was. This is really a key book that most people miss. This shows up in military collections. I bet you there's probably only one or two people, maybe Annie or somebody like that, saw this book before. But most other people probably hadn't a clue on this book. I do military. I go to military shows. This book shows up at military shows, sometimes for like $100. I do military shows a lot. It's one of the shows that I don't do, don't talk about too much, but maybe one day we'll film at one of them or something. I know one of the promoters. We've been to the show many times. He probably let me set up. I didn't and film it and talk to some people, so maybe that would be something interesting for you. Anyway, $450. Again, it doesn't have to say Dr. Seuss, but I know this is Dr. Seuss. I've known this one for a very long time, 20 years. Or more about. So, and I've ran into many copies of this. So, just FYI, this is insider secret BOLO. Don't go sharing this book anywhere else, because I'm telling you, you're going to run into this if you look in the right places, and it's not going to be thought of as a Dr. Seuss book. Most military people don't even think about Dr. Seuss. They only mess in military. That's why this one shows up. So that's an inside, major secret, top secret BOLO on this one here. Military collectors only collect military. They don't branch out very often. And this is just one of those things that shows up in a box lot of a bunch of military books and pamphlets. And it doesn't look like much, again, as I say. And many people might, even if they're not military collectors and run into this, may not even think anything and not know much about it because it is military and they don't know military. So it's got many things going for why you could find this book. Now, let's talk about coins for a minute here. Again, I have a coin video shot. It's not edited or anything, but it's going to go into stuff like this. There's a ton of them out on YouTube. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't spend a single coin that I get. Every single coin I get, if I'm out buying anything, goes into my pocket. I never give out change. And if I have a penny in my pocket, it means I'm going to get 99 cents back. I'm going to take the 99 cents every time. My son goes and buys boxes of like dimes and quarters and halves if he can get them. And he'll pick through them and pull out all the silver. He might get, a couple ounces of silver in the right day by doing this, for free. I know it takes time, and he's just piddling around watching a show or something while he's doing this. So my son's done that for years. There's tons of videos that do that. I haven't personally done that. I go with him sometimes. I'll help him carry him from the bank and stuff. But But he's my son, so, I obviously help him all I can. I always search through every coin I get, every single coin I pull out. Some pennies are worth more than a penny if you didn't know that. 1982, they've gotten rid of copper and it's zinc coated. Before 82, and even some 82s are both versions. There's like 7 different pennies that were released in 1982. Before 82, 81 and down, they're all solid copper. But the value of copper went up. This one here is something you can find in pocket change because people do find this in pocket change. I found one in pocket change. I didn't get this much for it. It wasn't very nice. I still got a few $100s for a worn version of this coin. Now, they're not all this obvious. Some of them are very lightly doubled where you can barely see an extra line on top of like the bar of the 5s. It's really minuscule, but they still sell. There's versions of this that are terrible like this one. This one's an obvious one, but there's versions, again, that aren't as bad. Pocket error coins, I've made a lot, thousands, and I'm not exaggerating. I've looked through every single coin, and as I said, my son gets boxes of coins, and he'll sometimes find errors and mint issues and things like that with coins in these rolls. We look through them. I've helped him look through some before, too. It's kind of fun. It's like treasure hunting. You got to remember, though, at the end of the day, you got to roll these back up, so it's not just all fun and games, but we've got a machine, and it just loads him back into a thing because he's done it so much. He actually has a coin sorter and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, one to look for in pocket change. It's a 1955 wheat penny. Both sides are technically doubled, but the back side has a very minuscule amount on it. It's almost nil on most of the ones like this. So again, there's many, many different kinds of error coins that'll be circulated coins. I'm going to show you a few other ones here. Now, there's a 3-legged buffalo. So if you're coin hunting and you're out there looking for coins and things like that, and you know your coins enough, most people who don't know about a 3-legged buffalo might only think it's a buffalo nickel worth $3 or $4 or $5. They may not realize there's these varieties out there. And that's what I bank on at like flea markets and antique stores and things like that. Because not everybody knows everything. Most people specialize in a few areas. Now, I don't know everything about every area, but I know a ton about a ton of areas just because I've done this for 20 plus years. I just didn't pick up these skills overnight. I've spent a lot of time doing this. It's a love. It's a labor of love. I go to antique malls and stuff like that. But before that, I went to, museums. I religiously go to museums. Henry Ford Museum's here in Detroit. We go there all the time. With season passes, wherever we went to the Smithsonian every chance we got. I've been to the National Art Gallery. We had season tickets or entrance passes to Mount Vernon, George Washington's home, which isn't owned by the federal government. His body is not owned by the government. They're owned by a women's organization, if you didn't know that. We went to all the forts and historical places and things like that. I love history, so for me this is perfect because I get to touch history and see the things that I used to see in museums, but now in person, not between some glass. I get to hold them. Even stuff that goes as far back as, Roman coins we buy and sell as well, too. Coins do extremely well. I don't talk a lot about coins, but coins in your pocket, I'm telling you, you're missing out. 15, 20 years ago, I found a quarter that was really thin. It was really weird. The design was there. It wasn't smashed. The shape was a hair out. It just felt weird. And I swapped it out. I was working somewhere, and I found it in a roll of coins. Well, there was no internet, and I just threw these on a bag of weirdos and silver coins for years. And then we started to do eBay, and I looked it up, and it turns out it was an error, and we ended up getting 170 some odd bucks for it. It was a quarter that was struck on a dime planchet. A planchet is the blank before the coin is struck. That's what a planchet is. And you'll find coins that have no design struck on them. Those are blank planchets, and they go for decent money as well, too. I have some. Maybe I'll show you some of my collection one of these days here, but I've got clipped corners and all kinds of errors that we've pulled out from bags of coins or from working at places, or me and the wife together. We've put our collection together, obviously, for years now, so people used to come and show me coins they got when I worked at Disney, and I'd buy them off of them as well, too. So I had dozens of people at one time that handled tills all day long, and they would show me, and I'd buy off. I'd sometimes pay them premiums as well, of course, for some of them, too. But that's just another way to make money. The three-legged buffalo in the right condition, and this is in primo, uncirculated condition, is worth a ton of money. Over $1,000 as you see in here. It's missing a leg, but it doesn't have any wear. That leg was not worn off. Now, people can fake some of these, so just watch out. But this one does look to be a full 100% legit from all the ones I've personally held and seen. Again, I don't use any coins at all that I get. Every single coin I get in change goes in my pocket. And when we get home, it goes into a jar or a cup. And maybe once a month or something, I'll pick through and we'll put all the pennies in a big, one of those big, huge, I think they're 5-gallon water jugs or whatever you want to call them. We got dimes in another one in that. And we save them for a year or two sometimes. We've got a couple full ones of dimes and things like that. They weigh a ton. But anyway, that's just something we've done for years. And in the past, we've used it to go on vacation and things like that. A couple extra $1,000, you know, in the right time frame. So this is an error. It's struck over a dime is actually struck on the same one. So basically, the planchet was put into a dime maybe first, and then somehow it got stuck or was still hanging on into the rings that hold these in there before they're hammered with the design. And they switched it over, and it got dunked into a dime one, and a light impression of a dime was stamped on it. This isn't something odd. This is 2018. This is something you can find in circulation right now. Again, I'm going to show you the ones that we've made the most, a couple $1,000 on, real quick and real easy in just a moment here when we first found out about them. We're down the road a few years, but you can still find a bunch of some of these here. We're going to show you some souvenir quarters in just a minute here. Here's another one. Same double denomination. Now they call these 11 cents, but they're really not. It's just a dime that's been struck on a penny planchet or a struck penny. Again, these do show up, and they make it out of the mint. So again, they show up in big, huge bags from the bank. And there are people that will buy like bank bags straight from the mint, you know, still sealed from the mint in hopes of finding errors. And the quarter that we'll show you in a minute here is one of those examples that people used to buy mint bags of quarters, brand new from the bank, when they could get them. Now, there's usually only like a central bank you can get those from, like $50. And in this town where we live, and it's a fairly decent-sized town, mind you, or at least the main town that we would drive to is, you can only get $50 in rolls in a very few places, one or two in the entire city. Like in New York or something, it's a different story. Miami or somewhere like that, it's a totally different story. But prices on these fluctuate. It depends on what year. Some years there are more found than others. It just depends. This is an error that goes back as far back as you can find coins. So these errors are something that's happened for the existence of coins in general. Now here is a brokerage. Now this is like a damaged die or something like that. I don't know the whole story on it. I do look for anything like this. This is just a perfect example. You can see that the front design, Lincoln, is on both sides in opposite directions. So this is just how it was obviously poorly stamped, and it wasn't caught. You know, so again, this made it out of the mint. Not super, super rare. It's only $667. Now, a rare mintage error might go for millions. So, again, these are stuff that do show up. And I've found enough to say, quite a few, enough to say, yes, it's well worth looking at every single coin in your pocket. I'm not being, you know, funny or silly. This is something that I do for every single coin. Every single time. There's double dies like the 1955 wheat penny. There's double dies for nickels. I believe one of the other ones is a 72 penny that's got a double die, and there's tons of other ones. So there's key ones that are known, like the 55 is a well-known one. I think the 72 is the second most common one that you could find. Now here's the one that I made thousands on. In 2004, the Wisconsin Souvenir Quarter or State Quarter was released. Now, one person found the first error and sold it to a coin collector. That coin collector had it slabbed and then immediately started searching for more of them. And pretty soon it got out to some other coin people. And then they were showing up on eBay for 1,000 plus, these same ones. Even unslabbed for over 1,000. Again, now they've went down because more and more of these have turned up. Now, in one side of this, there's an ear of corn you see over there on the far right. Now, there's 3 different spots that there's extra leaves. Somewhere down the line, a stamper or the die for it was damaged and somebody's recut one and added a leaf in without thinking, or maybe even was done originally, but there's like a low leaf, a high leaf, and a middle leaf added. There's many different varieties of this quarter here. This one's made us thousands, and I do mean thousands when we first discovered it. We discovered it, though, in 2004, 2005 was the time frame when we were doing this. We still find these same quarters. So again, they're still out there, I promise you. They're being swooped up, but again, you can find these. People will buy bags of quarters for the same reason. They'll pull out the silver ones and then they'll search through them for error coins. There's people here that just do coins like this. They will just do coin pulls out of stuff like that. We've sorted through our coins for 2 decades or more, so this is something I've done for a long, long time. I love old coins. My father collected silver dollars. He had a huge, extensive collection of colonial silver dollars even. Again, you can see the prices here. Extra leaf, here's another extra leaf. This is the high version of it. So if you could examine, let's see if we can get it over here. You can see that this one's higher. Again, you'll have to compare them on your own. I think I got one that has them all. Certain versions of it, the high leaf sells for more than the low leaf. Low leaf is the more common one. Another example of it. Is this the, let's see here, this is the high leaf one again. It's the leaf underneath the C-shaped leaf on the ear of the corn on the left-hand side on the bottom next to the cheese. That's the leaf we're talking about there. Now here's a mixed variety version of these same ones here. Now this person has 3 of these, so he's got 3 of the same ones. He's sold all 3 of them, mind you, for over $100. This is probably something that he searched through coins. You're not out a dime, literally, doing this. Because if you don't find one, all you are is out time. You still have the coins worth the same amount of money you bought them for from the bank. So anyway, that's just an FYI. Now let's talk about stamps for just a minute here. Stamps, stuff to look for. Again, I told you monotone, 1 color or 2 at the very most. Those are the earlier stamps. If they're only in 1 color like this and you can see the engraving lines, they're early. Cut off ones without perforations, early. Good ones to look at. Unperforated ones like this are good. Now this is the Hawaiian Islands. Perfect example. I've shown you a few in my collection. I've got about a dozen or so Hawaiian Islands that I've sorted through and found in picks, and then I've just kept and sold other ones to be able to afford to keep them for nothing and still get a profit. Another perfect example. People may not think these are legit, but this is 100%, no doubt, 100% legit. Another one are express stamps of any kind, any kind. This is Nevada territory. And again, territory items, I've said before, always go for decent money. Not super, super scarce. This one is, but most of them aren't super, super scarce. So don't think they're all worth almost $1,500. This is the type of thing that you want to look for, and that sometimes can be missed because people that collect stamps don't always consider these stamps. These are somewhat fantasy pieces. They weren't printed by the U.S. government. Now, a good die-hard stamp collector that wants anything U.S. is going to know this one and going to snag it up, but people who sell stamps that don't really know stamps aren't going to know much about this or think anything of it, in my personal view from what I've seen in the past. You know, you got to be a specialist to even know what this one is. Most people have never even seen this one, in all honesty. But it's just a coach express service that would deliver packages and, in some cases, people and things like that. This goes way back, too. Pony Express. Now, this is kind of a play. This is a Wells Fargo express delivery stamp. Again, even in tip-top catalog value, it goes for about $100 or $800 or so. This is a decent copy. It was cut off a little center, but you can't criticize it. You can see the Pony Express cancellation on it, too, in blue with the rider on it. That's the one you really want. That's the most expensive one. $500 on these. Again, they're not printed by the U.S. government. And don't worry about the pricing on these. This is the area that the amount of the stamp isn't a key value to the stamp being worth something. Now, I told you in regular stamps, the higher the value, the more it's worth because they made less of those. But Pony Express this express service costs a lot of money, so they're all like $1 or more. So there's no cheapo stamps for these kind of services. So they're all high dollar. So don't think that it's worth way more than other ones if you see it's got $1 or something on it. Another Pony Express, $261, just another example, $4 in this one. It depends on how far they were going. This is mint with hinge on it as well, too. And here's just an assortment of some of the various types. These are all ones that were printed by private companies. So some of these, too, were printed by, like, medicine companies, like Boyd's. I've had many Boyd's. This is a New York company. They've been doing express stamps for a long time. Pomeroy's another one. Blood and Co., that's another one. Now, some of these you'll find were for, like, Hussey's is another one. The little letter carrier box is another good one. Some of these were like medicinal stamps even that you can run into that are, perforated like this. They made trade cards for some of these as well, too. So some of these I've seen other types of advertisement for, so I knew the names instantly. Now, I've had a few of most of these. Now, the Bloods ones are harder to get than most of the other ones. A few of these do look like they are copies. The Hussey's ones possibly could be, but I couldn't say for sure. These all aren't worth some money, but if you saw a sheet like this, it'd be well worth it. Now, some of these have some major issues to them when looking at the back, but still, it's a nice assortment. Display quality is usually key to selling these, at least for something. Another Wells Fargo. Some people might not realize this is a stamp and just pass them up to you. You might find a bunch of these together in a sheet or something, but not worth a fortune. But again, it does carry a decent value. So anyway, and just another Express one. Any of the ones that say Express on them are like locals. I don't worry about the price. They're all monotone, though, as you see. They're all monotone ones. One color, monotone, single color. That's the key on some of these early ones. And whether they're perforated or not, Express. Now, there's a U.S. Express stamp that has like a delivery truck on them in multiple different colors. But each one's only one color, basically. So those are very common. You want Express that don't appear to be U.S. printed stamps. So anyway, we'll show you just a few more here, but I'm just trying to get you the gist on oddball things. Another Express stamp. Pomeroy's Express, Letter Express. It was like a local letter service. This has a couple different varieties included too. So different colors, different varieties, different denominations, different looks. It's just a different grouping of these, as you can see here. Now, this is from a page in a book, and I see this occasionally too, where people have written notes by hand or not. Nice examples here. People create books. These are show guards, the black around the stamp. It's actually a protector, and I've showed you those in other videos to look for those. Without stamps, just the protectors can sell for good money if they're unused. And now here's margin copies. Now, these are sheet margin copies is what they call them, which means that at the edge of the paper, there's just extra paper, and they were lucky that they didn't cut the stamp away from the extra paper and never used it. Penny Express, another express company, non-U.S. government. These are fantasy pieces to some people. Cinderella's back of books would be what I call them, B.O.B., back of books. Most of these carry some sort of value. So you see these in a book, and the rest of the stamps aren't worth something. Sometimes people didn't pull these out of the books, but they pulled the high dollar, regular issue stamps out thinking these aren't worth much. If it's an older book, that's almost always true because a lot of these were in older books, but they didn't carry a value back then at all. But the stamps themselves, regular U.S. postage stamps, had the value. And this is just another example of another. This is like a bill kind of thing. I don't know how to explain specifically on this. This is in a foreign language, obviously, as well, too. These do show up. It's got Monterey, California on it. So there is some Spanish language ones of these that would have went through Mexico and things like that, too. So anyway, this is basically what I got for you today. Most of the items I'm showing you are stuff that are missed fairly often. You're not going to see any other video of people talking about most of these items. The coins, of course. And as I said, I will have a coin video up also. But basically, these items people just don't talk about and don't even think about. Most people don't look for these. You're not going to run into these unless that's what you want to find, I'm telling you. I go to places where these have more chances of showing up. Sometimes coin shows I do go to, or like a military show, some of these items still show up. Wells Fargo did stuff with the government at some points too. So anyway, that's what I got for you. Well, there you have it. That's what today's list is. Hopefully that's a good BOLO list for you. These are all items that missed or we do run into a lot. Now again, like on books or something, you have to have the right edition. But I find those books, the ones we discussed, fairly regularly where I can at least see a half a dozen copies and maybe luckily find one or two that are first edition. So just keep that in mind. Magazines, same thing. As always, I appreciate all the support. If you have any questions or you need anything else, just let me know down below, and happy to help you any way we can. So have a good day, everyone.